Donna Adelson is not done fighting. The 75-year-old matriarch of the Dan Markel murder for hire plot, which sadly was successful back in July of 2014. Well, she has now filed her notice of appeal, vowing to challenge everything from pretrial rulings to her life sentence behind bars.
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning journalist, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. This is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. You've got the Brainiac panel coming to you in just a moment. Tonight, we're diving deep into the next twist in the Dan Markel murder case, just weeks after being sentenced to life in prison on September 4th the sentencing was after the conviction was September 4th, so it is just a few weeks. Donna Adelson, who is the 75-year-old mother and grandmother at the center of this infamous murder for hire plot, she has officially filed her notice of appeal. Her Tallahassee attorneys, Josh Zellman and Jackie Fulford, you know them, they filed the paperwork yesterday, November 4th, later in the day, telling the court she is appealing the pretrial rulings, the evidence admitted at trial, the jury's verdict, and the life sentence itself. Without further ado, let's bring in the guests. You've got the former Florida state attorney, youngest state senator ever, I believe, and now a defense attorney in private practice, Dave Ehrenberg. Next up, you've got the high priestess of STS. She is the matriarch of this case, I would say. Carm is the purest of the matriarchs on this show, but Joe Patuto just maybe a quarter or an eighth of the rung below her in that category. This is Professor Joe Patuto, Professor Emerita, University of Nebraska School of Law. And last but not least, the guy who graduates UCLA at 19 and Harvard Law at 22. Look at this. You got two Harvard Law graduates, Nima Rahmani, two Harvard Law graduates, and the professor who teaches the law. You can't get much bigger or better than that. So now, welcome to everybody. The case now moves to Florida's First District Court of Appeal, the same court where her son Charlie Adelson is already fighting his conviction. And by the way, coincidentally, Charlie's been given some extensions to his deadline, and he has another deadline today for, I'm going to ask Joe Patuto about this. I'm not even sure exactly what that's all about, but there is another deadline, I guess, to broaden out his appeal. And if he doesn't reach it today, the court said get lost. So we're expecting something to drop in that regard, too. Charlie's team argued that the same thing, essentially, that pretrial publicity and jury bias doomed him from the start. Donna's lawyers, of course, are widely expected to make the same argument. So what happens next? How long is it going to take? That's what the guests are here to do, to break it all down. So, Dave Ehrenberg, what is next? You've got this. Let me just bring this up for a moment. This is, and we've got a little follow-up in a moment on some news that was broken on STS. We'll get to that in a second. But this is the sheet of paper. This is it. The notice of appeal from Donna Sue Adelson. So, Dave Ehrenberg, you're an expert in the law. You used to be the Jack Campbell of Palm Beach County. What does happen next with Donna Sue?
Well, she's got to file the brief with the reasoning for the appeal. She hasn't done that yet. This is just her notice. Not a surprise, but good luck with that. Not only does she have weak ground, she also has an appellate court in the First District Court of Appeals that is notably conservative, like the most conservative appellate court in the state. And so they're not exactly going to look kindly on someone from South Florida who is claiming that she didn't get due process and the trial should have moved out of town, a criminal defendant who followed her in her son's footsteps and getting a life sentence. So I think this appeal is going nowhere.
Dave, do you think, before I get to Joe and Nima, I mean, do you think, we had Drina Bernhardt, the quote unquote jail daughter of Donna Adelson, and we're going to play this in a minute. There's some news from that. But among the things she told us was that Donna told her, I'm going to beat the charges here. I'm just going to go to court I'm going to put on my granny face and I'm going to get acquitted. It didn't happen. Do you think in this case, from what we now know, that she thinks that Grandma Donna thinks, hey, I'm going to win this appeal. I'm going to get a second crack at this. Do you think she believes that?
I don't, but I also didn't think she actually believed she'd get away with it, but she thought she'd get away with it, and then she thought she'd win her trial. But that's similar to Charlie. Remember, Charlie thought he had won when he testified and was flawless in answering every question. Flawless meaning he had an answer for every question. He had rehearsed this thing while he was sitting behind bars. And the jury is a lot smarter than these defendants thought they are, because they didn't believe any of it. They didn't believe him. They didn't believe her and her lawyers. And so quick guilty verdicts. No, I don't think she thinks she's going to win on appeal. I think you can see how crushed she was afterwards when everything came tumbling down. The little bubbles they live in were popped. And so, no, I don't think she thinks she's going to win on appeal. But then again, she's the delusional one, not me.
Look at that. We've talked about it before, but Dave's cookie jar is a thing of beauty. Is that a replica of an actual puppy of yours there, Dave, or is that just a lookalike?
That was my beloved Basset Hound, Cookie, the Basset Hound. She's my first dog, and she meant so much to me. I lost her a couple years ago, and so I keep the cookie jar there as a memory of Cookie. And since then, I've adopted Getty the Beagle, named after Getty Lee, the Beagle from rural Tennessee. So, so dog lover for life, man. And
you were not able to clone the first dog like Tom Brady. Any idea?
I don't do that because I want to rescue dogs. I don't want to bring other dogs into the world. There's already so many dogs. I want to rescue the ones who need homes, or like millions of dogs out there who are put down every year. So you don't need to clone ones that are already in existence. You know. Look,
as obsessed as I was with Mabel Rose, I don't know that I would clone her. But Tom Brady's a weird dude, and that's a whole other show. Joe Patuto. He's also a neighbor of mine. We're just separated by a sea of water and
moat. It's called a moat.
$1 million.
Yeah, he sits where the king. He sleeps where the king sleeps. I sleep on the other side of the moat. Joe Patuto. I've never seen him. I've seen other people in town, but I've never seen Tom Brady. One day I will, and I'll say, "Hey, how much did you pay to clone that dog?" I'm curious. Joe Patuto. Charlie Adelson, he filed his appellate brief in May. He's got some sort of deadline on it that's due today, which I'll bring up in a second. But in that appeal, we've talked about this before. He claims through his attorney, Mr. Ufferman, that the judge refused to move the trial despite all this pretrial publicity. Another issue was juror bias tainted the verdict. Evidence, including the Dolce Vita tape, was misused. And then the state responded, and now there's some sort of other, additional information that they're supposed to be sending to the appellate court. But are we going to see, do you think, these same essentially three items here, the pretrial publicity, the juror bias, the evidence wasn't fair, et cetera, et cetera? Are we going to get a curveball on all this?
No, you're going to see those, and you're also going to see her challenge the murder one conviction on insufficient evidence. That's the one I think that will be new to her. But she signaled a signal. She said at the sentencing hearing that the jury was biased and there should have been a change of venue. So that one's coming. They made two at least pretrial motions saying the judge was biased. So that one's coming. The Dolce Vita tape, no. But she'll challenge the drop phone call. I'm sure that's going to be on her list. And she raised that the two jailhouse informers shouldn't have testified. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be on her list.
Yeah. Nima, to you again, just to go through, we have Charlie to look at and probably project what's going to happen with Donna. Again, the judge refusing to move the trial despite the publicity. Juror bias tainted the verdict. The evidence, in his case, the Dolce Vita tape. Are these like three prongs, sort of very standard for a defendant's appeal? I mean, is this what you commonly hear, I guess, in a high-profile case that the jury was tainted? Is there something more original that they could possibly come up with here?
Joel, I think we will see a few more original arguments. First of all, I mean, it's always good to be on STS, but be with Dave and Professor Joe. I mean, really an all-star panel. I mean, the brain power here through the roof, right? So
he's got to rub it in. I'm the lowly, non-lawyer, non-Harvard guy. But go ahead, Nima.
So look, like Dave said, you file your notice of appeal, right? We saw in the Diddy case, for instance. Then you see the arguments in the actual brief. So I agree with everything that we've already talked about. The venue motion, I think it's going to be denied. Look, I've handled venue motions. When I was out of law school, we represented Jeff Skilling and Enron, right? But in these types of cases, like everyone in the entire country knows about the case. Not like you go to another county in Florida, people aren't going to know who Donna Adelson is or Dan Markel, right? And the standard is you can't get a fair and impartial jury. That's a very difficult standard. And obviously, they're going to attack certain key pieces of evidence, really damaging ones, right? Like the jailhouse informant, right? Like some of the video. I think we will see a couple other motions that are going to be, or a couple of other arguments in their appellate brief that are unique to this case. And one is going to be the effort to disqualify the judge. The judge signed off on some search warrants. The defense argued that there were some ex parte communications. Again, not a good argument. I agree with Dave. Usually we agree. I think we used to be on panels all the time and they separated us because we always agreed with one another. But he's absolutely right. It's not a good argument, but expect to see that. And then expect to see some arguments about what the jurors did after the trial. One of them, he posted a TikTok. Another one went on a podcast talking about their deliberations a bit. Again, I don't think any of this is going to change the outcome, but you swing and maybe you get
missed.
Yeah, you're likely going to miss, right?
Yeah. Well, Professor, let me ask you. I mean, just following up on what Nima just said, he brought out two other things. They did try to disqualify. How dare they? Judge Stephen Everett, a seemingly great judge with a great command of the courtroom, who liked to yell a little bit at Donna, and also this issue of the jurors speaking post-trial. And I have to tell you, I interviewed three of them, and they seemed to be almost at a professional caliber of jurorship, if that's a word, which it's not. But what goes on, I guess, inside baseball? So now you go to a panel of appellate judges. How do they decide if this was fair or not? I mean, let's start with Judge Everett. How they decide, okay, they put in a couple of motions to get him basically recused from the case, and he said no. So how did they figure this out now?
Well, they review the arguments that are made by each side and whatever evidence is in the record. And then they say he wasn't biased, which is what I think they're going to say. I mean, he made a lot of rulings in the case, and some big ones went in favor of the defense. You've got to show that it was to show the bias. You've got to show that he did something really wrong, that he abused his discretion in doing something. And I don't see how they're going to find it. On the ex-party communications, that was, at least some of that was with regard to a probable cause motion. And you never have both parties at a probable cause motion on a warrant or a wiretap. I mean, I'd like to see the appellate judges read that argument. So I don't see that there's any merit to it, but that's what they have to do. They weren't there. So they have to rely on the record that's provided to them and the arguments by the lawyers about what the evidence means.
Yeah, and Dave, just to follow that up, I don't think anyone really cares. I'm always curious about weird things like this. This process, the actual process where these appellate judges look at this. I mean, how does this work out? Have you ever even seen this happen? Like, do they sit at a table together with filings spread out across the table? How does it work?
Well, I wasn't a clerk for the first DCA, so maybe Nima or Professor Joe can tell you the inner workings of how it works. But generally, you have law clerks, and they review the transcripts, and they see, was there evidence of bias? And I did think that Donna's defense team tried to bait bias they put on Harvey, who actually told the judge to his face that he was biased, that he was essentially a crooked judge, is what Harvey was saying. It was really terrible and really rude. And Judge Everett, the professional that he is, just was so great about it. He brushed it off and just said, no, it's all good, and refused to really admonish Harvey like he could have. And I think that shows lack of bias. I think they were taunting, they were baiting him. They wanted him to step in and just trash the family and say something that they could use against him later, but he never did.
By the way, I asked about the cookie jar, but now I'm noticing I'm not very perceptive. I should be more perceptive. You got 2 giant sword/knives. What are those?
When I left the state attorney's office after 12 years, the association presented me with this award, the Gene Whitworth Award, for my service, and it's swords. And so I said, I can't wait to put it behind me for TV hits. So I did it. The only problem is that glass is reflective, and so when I have light in front of me, it reflects. So I got to get non-reflective glass, something that Jewish guys don't. I mean, how do I know about that stuff, right? And here's the coolest part. It all comes full circle. When I got the award, there were a couple people getting an award. There was Prosecutor of the Year statewide was at that same ceremony getting the award. Do you know who the Prosecutor of the Year in the state of Florida was last year?
Georgia Kaplan.
You got it. And I got up when I gave my speech. I gave a little nod. I said, and I hope that our other award winner doesn't stop at this next case. It said something like that.
And does she have swords too, or does she get like a lesser award?
No, I think she got a plaque.
Oh, poor Georgia. We're going to have her on soon. She's coming on soon. We're going to talk to her about that. You know what's going to happen, Donna? She's at the Women's Reception Center. We haven't heard where she is going, but at least until this appeal gets filed, and unless we get word of anything else, she's going to be in prison for a very long time. Drina Bernhardt, our guest, was talking about the difference between county jail and prison. Was in both, and she said Donna's going to have a really hard time. But Donna's going to have JPay. She's going to have access to email. And I hope she gets this to help her with the spam. You guys know I love the COE. Well, I went and tried to get her a little something special. I slapped the plastic down on the counter and bam, denied. Credit card, a no-go. Why? Because everyone is stealing personal data these days, and I guess they got to my bank before I did. And that is simply why I cannot live without Incogni. Incogni tracks down and removes your personal data from multiple sites, including personal and online directories. Also, you can use their custom removal feature to take down almost everything that's exposed about you online. I know you've searched yourself on Google, all those things you don't want. Well, now all you have to do is send Incogni a link, and their dedicated privacy expert will take it from there. It's just 3 easy steps. Create your account, authorize Incogni to remove it, and see it disappear from the web. And you too can breathe a sigh of relief and feel safe again. Take your personal data back with Incogni. Use code TheSurvivor at the link below and get 60% off an annual plan at incogni.com/TheSurvivor. I mean, what could be worse in prison than spam? Donna, you should really think about Incogni. So, Nima, I'm going to come to you first out of the gates here as soon as I play this. This is now Drina Bernhardt on our show. This question was unsolicited. I didn't even think to go there. I would have no idea that Drina would even talk about this, have any idea about it. And we've got to consider the person who was telling her this, and then we'll follow it up after this. Drina Bernhardt, Donna's jail daughter, on our show just the other day.
Also, I don't know if the public was aware, but she was offered a 10-year plea, and the rest of, if she would have taken that 10 years, then the rest of the family wouldn't have been charged, and she didn't do it.
Wow. Talking about a 10-year plea deal. Now, this is interesting because back a couple months ago, Tim Jansen, very well sourced in Tallahassee, came on and said that Donna was offered a deal. It was actually a sweeter deal. It was time served. The interesting point here is that was sort of forgotten about. Pretty much every other content creator and person took a lot of shots at Tim. Now, this is Drina saying that Donna told her. Nima, let's start there. I've got a statement from Josh Zellman on this, but what do you make of that Donna told her? And I believe Drina wholeheartedly. I'm not saying the plea deal is necessarily a thing of truth, but I do believe that there is veracity in the fact that Donna opened her mouth to Drina. What do you think's happening here, Nima?
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Obviously, Donna's a liar, not to be believed. But let's talk about the two things she said: a 10-year deal, and that it would essentially exonerate the rest of the family members. Right? 10 years seems light to me for solicitation to commit murder. And again, maybe there's not enough for her being a principal, but whether she's a co-conspirator or someone who solicited murder, that doesn't seem like enough time. Now, obviously, she's no spring chicken, so 10 years might be a death sentence for her. Maybe that's the discussion. But as far as an exoneration and not going after the other family members, now, if we're talking about Charlie, that doesn't make any sense at all, because obviously he's the connection between Catherine McManaway, Sigfredo Garcia, everyone else we've talked about on the show. Now, you and I have talked about Wendy. I know everyone wants to know about Wendy. I've gone on record, Joel, saying that if and when Donna's convicted, I think that's probably the end of the road. I don't think Wendy is going to be prosecuted. Might be wrong. So maybe that's the exoneration that they're talking about. But I would be surprised if there was any type of deal at the 10-year mark offered, number one. And number two, certainly never an exoneration for Charlie. Now, maybe it was offered after she was arrested and Charlie's conviction was going to stand. But, as far as exonerating Wendy and her husband, again, I don't know how helpful or useful that is, because I'm not sure that the prosecution will get there anyway.
Yeah, and Nima, I've told you before, it's Nima Rahmani at hatemail.com. But Nima, why? And Nima predicted, I said this again before on a different show, he predicted the Diddy verdict to a T, which makes me nervous in that he's saying no future indictment. But why do you think that?
No, I just think based on the evidence that's come out, and look, I'm not saying she didn't have a role in all this, but it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And we're really kind of peeling the layers back. Obviously, the evidence against Wendy is more significant. The evidence against Donna is more significant. The financial paper trail. This was probably the most difficult of the cases. Now, look, maybe Georgia, the fact that she got a verdict in 3 hours on all counts will sort of embolden her to move forward. But it's a much tougher case, in my estimation, against Wendy and against others than it was against Charlie and Donna. But we'll see.
Dave Arenberg. So let me read you the statement we got today from Josh Zellman. I apologize, we don't have it on a graphic. This is now Donna's attorney filing this appeal, who's responding to Drina here. He says, I can state unequivocally that my client was not offered any such deal. This yet again shows that Ms. Bernhardt manipulated both my client and the state, as well as anyone else who listens to and believes what she has to say. Your response?
Well, I don't know who to believe here, because you have a liar in Donna Adelson and you have a liar really in the past. I'm sorry, Miss Bernhardt has been a liar. I mean, she's under the throes of addiction in the past. So I don't know if I automatically just believe that she knows that there was a 10-year plea deal. It does seem, as Nima said, it's weird. If you plead to 10 years, then we will not go after anyone else in your family. That doesn't seem right. I mean, what? And Donna, to take that deal, that would have given her pretty much, like, she'd be out 8.5 years. She would make sure that the children, their little sunshines, would have their mother and not be prosecuted. Harvey would never be prosecuted. So it seems like a really good deal for Donna. And I don't see why they would have even offered that deal. Why would you say to Donna, I'll give you 10 years behind bars, which is less than pretty much that she would ever get at a trial, and I'm never going to go after anyone else, when the world is clamoring for them to go after Wendy? I don't know if I really believe that was the deal. And I do know the pitfalls of disagreeing with Nima, because he and I disagreed on the Diddy verdict, and he was right and I was wrong. But I still think Wendy's going to be prosecuted. I just think that that Georgia and her team saw that the foreperson of the jury came out and said, yeah, she's guilty. Wendy's guilty. Well, that trial wasn't even about Wendy. They sort of made it in part about Wendy, but the evidence against Wendy was not fulsome. And yet in a trial against Wendy, you're going to see it all. And so if the juror in this trial said, yes, she's guilty, when only seeing part of the evidence, then I would think Georgia knows she's got Wendy dead to rights if she prosecutes her. Obviously, no guarantee. It's a much tougher case than Charlie and Donna, but I think they've got the goods.
We'll get to Harvey in a minute. I see Kimberly Rule asking about that. Joe Patuto, this time around, Josh Selman's statement is much stronger. I forget that you probably remember it better than I do, but in his original statement, it was sort of a passive, passively defiant statement where it left room for some interpretation about a plea deal. Here he says he can state unequivocally that his client was not offered any deal. So do you believe the always truthful defense attorneys? Do you believe, I believe Drina did hear this from Donna. What do you think is happening? And what is the benefit to Donna telling this to Drina?
Well, I think we've got a convicted murderer who lies, telling a story to, we'll assume, to an informer who lies, and I see no reason to believe either of them. In this case, Donna may have said it to, I don't know, ingratiate herself with the informer, to make it seem as though she's really the sorry victim here, and even the state recognizes it, so they'd give her a real deal, or she didn't say it. And the informer has no reason to tell the truth that I can see. And you have the other issue, which is Donna may have said one thing and the informer heard something else. So it could have been a complete miscommunication, one to the other. So I don't believe the story. I don't believe it for the reason Nima said, for the reasons that Dave said. I don't believe it because I'm sure Georgia thought she had a strong case. She thought at the end of the case that the jury was going to be at less than the 3 hours when the jury was out. So her assessment in the case, of course, it was stronger once she saw all the evidence go in and when she heard the defense. But her assessment of the case at the outset had to have been it was a pretty strong case. I agree with both Nima and Dave that Wendy's trial prosecution will be harder than Donna's, and Donna's, you could say, was harder than Charlie's, but I think there's enough evidence to go forward, and I hope they do it. I hope they don't stop because they figured they've got who they think were really the major players and leave somebody out there who I think had a direct role based on the evidence I've seen. So I don't believe the story. Whether it's miscommunication, whether Drina lied, whether Donna lied, I don't know where it is, but I don't believe the story.
And I agree with, I'm going to lean here with Dave and Joe, and we can wait forever. So we'll have to come back in like 30 years if Nima's right. I won't let him be right for at least 30 years. Kimberly Rule, Nima, to you, what about charging and arresting Harvey? Now, Drina in the interview talks about how Harvey would get on the phone with her when Donna called from jail, and he would speak to her, and they had a code name for her, and that he was apparently zelling her some money. Saying it seems a little unkosher. Nima, what about the question is, what about charging and arresting Harvey? I mean, we know they opened up an investigation. We just don't really know where that all led.
Listen, man, I'm as pro prosecution as they come. I want everyone to be charged and in prison, right? So when I make a prediction, it's just my guess as to what's going to happen. But look, I mean, you got a very impressive win streak going. It's just my guess. The fact that, Georgia's going to come on the show, she is doing the media tour. Again, these are all just kind of signs to me that it's really the end of the road. Hope I'm wrong. It's just a guess. But for me, Harvey is even further removed, right? Because Wendy, at least she got the clear motive. She's the one that stands to benefit the most. And maybe it wasn't just the meddling mother, and she was actively involved in this conspiracy. So I think it's a stronger case with respect to Wendy. You start going to Harvey, becomes just a lot more challenging. And, I don't know necessarily if the juice is worth the squeeze at that point.
Joel,
yeah.
didn't you have Georgia on previously?
Yeah, she's coming back.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't read too much into it that it's the end of the road because he was on previously on your show.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
It wasn't the end of the road then.
It was before Charlie's trial, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I hope I'm wrong. Listen,
Yeah,
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, it was before Charlie's trial. Good point, Dave. Lily McGill, I just have to respond to this. For the love of God, Joel, there was no plea. Shaking my head. Don't do that. I don't want you to get CTE. Stop this. Jackie's on record saying there was no plea. Last person on earth I'm to believe, with all due respect to defense attorneys, and especially criminal defense attorneys, are they. And look, Josh Selman seems like a stand-up, very nice guy who I look forward hopefully to interviewing one day. We asked him for an interview. He said he's not authorized to do so. I would only assume that Donna is the one saying that. I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, just a comment. I'm not a defense attorney, but I guess I would like to be on record that as between believing murderers and informers, I think we should believe the defense attorney.
That is duly noted for the record. I'm not sure what percentage I agree with that comment, but I will listen. Josh Selman seems like a very nice human being with a very difficult job here. I'll just say this. I personally do not doubt Donna saying this to Drina. I don't think Drina is just making this up out of whole cloth. I mean, Dave, we're going to have to let you go in a second, but same question I asked Joe, because I'm curious about this. What would she gain from telling Drina this? She doesn't know is coming on my show eventually. What's the advantage of her making this baseless claim?
I can see, as the professor said, that Donna made this up to try to make herself look sympathetic, that she really was innocent, because if she weren't, why would they give her only 10 years, 85% rule, serving 8.5 years for a murder, and at the same time agreed not to prosecute anyone else in the family? So maybe this was a way to show, see, I told you I'm not guilty, because look at this weak plea deal they're trying to offer me. So maybe that's it. Or maybe the confidential informant is a liar too.
Yeah. Now, before you go, Dave, I've got one more clip. Tomorrow night, by the way, we're going to get reaction to the Drina show. And then Friday with Carm, we're going to do that as well. But here, let's watch this. There's a clip I asked the COE to pull. This has a different title, so I'm not sure what's going on. Let's see what this is. But this is from the show with Drina. To her just ruthlessly telling you that she wanted to punish. All right, this is the sweet, sweet, loving, doting mother, Donna, and her thoughts on her son, Rob, and what she wanted to do to him. And Dave, since you have to run, I'm going to come to you first out of this bite. Rob or hurt Rob, I forget the exact word you used. Did she go into any more detail about that? Did she say like anything along the lines of she wanted to get rid of him, kill him, anything like that?
Okay, so her exact words were, which I told the prosecution that they said I wasn't allowed to say this at the trial, but Donna told me she wanted to kill him by shoving a shoe down his throat. And that was it for me. That was what I was talking about. So yes, and I know that's not possible, but that's, she had a lot of hate for him. So yes, that's what she said. So now it's out.
Wow. So this is like real animus, like a real anger and hatred. I mean, I'm not a therapist, my mother is, but obviously you're not going to kill someone shoving I mean, I guess it's possible, but just the visuals of that alone, when she said that to you, I mean, there had to be a part of you in your brain going, this woman is nuts. What were you thinking when she said that?
Well, like I told you, that was my turning point. And I was thinking, this isn't just a bad person. This to me this is evil. This is beyond bad. This is, I'm kind of scared, and also that there can be people on this earth that are like that. It was scary. Yeah, it was definitely, it's all still a shock to me. Like I'm still processing everything, but just like I said, that was the turning point for me. And it's vicious. And there are other things that she shared with me that were vicious as well. I just, maybe we'll talk about it behind the scenes.
Dave Arenberg, your reaction to hearing that this doting mother wants to murder her own son by shoving a shoe down his throat.
Well, I believe she said it, because how do you make up something so ridiculous as shoving a shoe down someone's throat? That's really specific and bizarre. And I believe she said it, but I would think it's more like, I want to wash his mouth out with soap. I would think she may have not said, I want to kill my son, just that I want to shove a shoe down his throat to shut him up. And then the confidential witness there is the one who added that she wanted to kill him that way. So that's the way I interpret it. It was a mother saying, I wish I could muzzle this guy. So that's it.
Yeah, and we knew he was going to testify. Dave Ehrenberg, you're a gentleman and a scholar, as my mother would say. We will talk on the flip side, and I'll get back to you about about what we were talking about.
Great to be with you, Joel, and with the professor and Nima. Thank you for having me. And can I make a quick plug on my Substack page?
Please.
At Dave Ehrenberg on Substack, where you get some videos and unique material. And also, if you need a lawyer in South Florida, Dave Ehrenberg Law. Thanks very much.
I always need a lawyer in South Florida. All right. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Go Canes. All right. There you go. Drina should set up her own bump with Harvey. That's interesting. Joe Patuto, I mean, you're a peace-loving professor at a university. Young kids, virgin ears, they would be destroyed hearing such vitriolic, disgusting language coming from a mother. But you agree with Dave Ehrenberg that it was sort of metaphoric in nature, not literal? Or do you think that Donna really despises her son so much that she wishes she could snuff his life out?
Oh, I think she despises him. I don't think there's any question about that. But she's given to hyperbole. I mean, think about the emails that she sent. She's over the top in her descriptive language. And so the idea that she would say, I'm going to shove a shoe down his throat, doesn't strike me as all that surprising coming from her. But I agree with Dave that I don't think that means she necessarily wants to kill him. She's just showing how venomous she is.
Yeah. And Nima, just sticking on that point for a minute. I mean, it's Carm, you better never have said that about me, and I will put you up to a lie detector test. But Anna Shaw here, Drina is scared. I mean, this is a woman who's been in jail many times, arrested 27 times, and spent time at Lowell, the women's prison in Florida. And she is saying that she is scared of Donna, that it was haunting. Your thoughts on that comment about her own estranged son who she gave birth to?
Yeah, it's a very bizarre comment, but obviously she is a very strange individual. I don't put it past her. I mean, this is the type of person that would say something insane and psychotic and completely inappropriate like that. So, look, I mean, again, I'm like Dave, he's not here. And Joe, I don't like relying on these jailhouse informants. They're criminals. They have every motivation to lie. But look, when you kind of buttress their testimony with corroborating evidence, right? We all saw the trial, we saw the video, we saw the writings, right? And there's so much other evidence against Wendy. The one-way ticket to Vietnam, the bizarre explanation that they're coming back for this bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. I mean, none of it made sense. So I think you look at that one piece, yeah, by itself, it's a weird statement. The testifying witness is someone who's been in and out of jail, might be testifying to save herself or has every motivation to lie. But if you look at it just one piece of the puzzle, it does start to make sense and it's consistent with the rest of the evidence.
Yeah. Some people taking Drina's literal word that she is evil. I've no doubt that just when you hear this interview and she talks about how Donna would sort of change personalities, like when she was on the yard or walking around the pod, I should say, she would act timid and meek. Then when her and Drina were alone, she's dropping F-bombs, Donna, and acting like she is super tough. Back to the appeal. I want to play a little more video because if you guys remember, at Donna's sentencing, Jackie Fulford basically put on a trial, everything that was wrong with the case and what she planned. She was kind of signaling what she plans for the appeal in some regards. I'm going to play parts of that in a minute, but Joe Patuto, when does this actually, so this was just the notice. When do you think this actually lands on the desk of these appellate judges here?
Well, look at how long it's taking Charlie's appeal. He was convicted, in September 2023?
2023.
Is that right?
November.
And his appeal hasn't landed on there, at least in terms of actually having the the argument and going forward, hers is going to take a while too. They're going to take forever, I think, on the briefs. They're never going to get, I think they're going to ask for an enlargement of time on the initial brief from the defense. The state may also ask for an enlargement of time. Then there's time for their, for the reply brief. So I certainly not within a year, and probably much longer than that before, her appeal is heard. And she'll be sitting in prison while she's waiting for them to get their appeal together. I don't even know, by the way, whether they've got an appellate lawyer on the case yet. I hope she's not going to use Jackie Fulford and Josh Zellman on the appeal. I was not a fan of what they did at trial, and I don't think they're appellate lawyers. So they've got to find an appellate lawyer, and they can't use Ufferman because he's on Charlie's appeal. So they've got to find someone else they think can handle the appeal. So that may be a bit of a delay too.
Jared Ross, I think his wife's an appellate attorney in Tallahassee, I believe. So who knows? Ain't No Hollow Back Girl says it's still snowing. It was snowing the other day. Hollow Back, if you need us to come rescue you with a sled, let Nima go. He'll show up from Los Angeles and he will save you all. This is Donna's prison history. This, by the way, is the order of the court here regarding Charlie. The court grants appellant's motion for extension of time filed October 6, 2025. Appellant shall serve the reply brief on or before November 5th. Guess what today is? November 5th, 2025. What are we looking at here, Nima Rahmani? Break down this legalese for us. This has to do with Charlie filing some sort of extension, and that extension date is today.
Yeah, so, and the professor's absolutely right. Look, these appeals can take months. A rule of thumb, if there's no extensions, it's just through the normal process, can take up to 12 to 18 months. But you start asking for extensions, more time, it's going to last even longer. So the first step is that notice of appeal. That's what happened in Donna's case, right? Then the appellant, which in case is the convicted defendant, they file an opening brief, right? That lays out all the legal arguments. Then the state or the government, if it's a federal case, they file their opposition, right? Then the appellant gets a reply, another chance. That's what this is. This is the second brief by Charlie Adelson's team. It was due today. That's called a reply to the opposition filed by the government. And then sometimes the government will file their own reply, which is called a surreply. Then it's set for oral argument, and the lawyers get to argue in person to that 3-judge panel, and sometime thereafter we get that written opinion, either affirming the judgment or overturning it or whatever the appellate court wants to do.
Yeah, and Nima, it says here, third line, the court will not grant further extensions absent a showing of a bona fide case of emergency. So should we expect to see a new Charlie appeal hit the docket sometime between now? It's 7:45 Eastern time in the next 4 hours and 14 minutes.
We absolutely should, because if not, it's going to be late. And if it's late, then the appellate court can strike the brief, can sanction the lawyers. You don't want to be late. These appellate judges, I mean, they're sticklers. Imagine, they're not dealing with trials, right? They're reading lots and lots of pages of documents, right? So it can be the transcript of the trial. It can be these briefs. So they're appellate judges for a reason. Just like the professor, I'm sure she holds those students to those deadlines. I expect that appeal to be filed today. If not, those lawyers, they're going to have a problem.
Right now, Michael Ufferman's at his desk, and a pool of sweat has formed below him. And on his iPhone, he has every alarm set beginning 11:01, 11:02, 11:03, 11:04, all the way to 11:59. I believe in Michael Ufferman. He's supposed to be one of the best appellate attorneys. He'll get it done, and we'll probably have to bump Drina and do a show on Charlie's new appeal brief, which should be filed at some point today. So keep an eye out for that. Any word on what prison Don will end up at? We don't know. Lowell has a geriatric portion. We found that out. It's also apparently the worst of the women's prisons. Drina was talking about how there's no AC. It is going to be a rough go of it for Donna. Speaking of Donna, this is her now. I believe providing testimony, and or Jackie. Let's watch this, and I believe this is from sentencing. Let's take a look, and it'll give us some insight into this appeal process.
I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. And the people who did this are exactly where they deserve to be. But I had no knowledge that this horrible, evil act was going to take place. If I had become aware of this plan before Danny was murdered, I would have stopped it. With not one iota of actual evidence, the state convinced a Tallahassee jury that I solicited and conspired with other people to have Danny killed. Where
is the evidence? I'm going to pick it up there, but Joe Patuto, that's point one for her. This is now Donna. I thought we had the clip with Jackie, who also lays this out. By the way, you hear Donna talking about how Dan Markel is a complete victim, but when Drina recounts the story, the things that Donna said about Dan are sickening. So there is this Jekyll and Hyde, if you are to believe, and I do, if you're to believe what Drina had to tell us. But Joe Patuto, you're an appellate judge, and now the defendant is saying in this brief that she's going to help whoever the appellate attorney is write that there is no evidence. Your response to this claim?
Yeah, well, it's ridiculous. Let me start by saying that. But I think what she's pointing at is the murder one conviction. And there is an argument there. I by no means think it's a winning argument, that the evidence on murder one doesn't show enough of her involvement. And the reason why I think she's focusing on that is she keeps harping on the date of the shooting, because the appellate court in Florida took a case. It's the case where the police or the law enforcement thought the victim, you couldn't find the victim because he was eaten by alligators. It's Denise Williams. And the court there said there just wasn't enough evidence for murder one for her. But the conspiracy conviction stuck, and that was 30 years. So I think I think they've got a real uphill battle. One, because I don't think they can make the case on the merits, but two, because first they have to get the murder one conviction overturned, saying there wasn't enough evidence to convict her. But then she's still facing the 30-year sentence on conspiracy and solicitation, and they're running concurrently. But she's facing 30 years, and 85% means it's 25 plus. That is not where she wants to be, obviously. So she's also then going to have to find yet another error substantial enough to require the overturning of the case. And she's got to prevail on that. If she doesn't prevail on that, it doesn't matter if the appellate court says no murder one. She's still going to be in prison. That's what happened to Denise Williams. The murder one count went, and she's been sitting in prison on the conspiracy conviction.
That is fascinating. Tim was involved in that case. Nima, you care to follow up on that evidence issue?
Yeah, I mean, the professor's absolutely right. So for folks that aren't the legal nerds, right, there's the three counts in this case. The first is solicitation, right? That's the fancy way of saying, hey, you hire a hitman, right? That's the strongest by far, because that's what's happened here. Then you got your conspiracy to commit murder. That's an unlawful agreement to commit murder. Now, you don't have to be the one actually pulling the trigger or stabbing someone, right? You just need that agreement and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy.
In Florida, Nima, they don't even need the overt act for conspiracy.
Even better. So it's even stronger there in Florida. So I'm talking California, obviously, federal law when I was a prosecutor. So conspiracy's there. Now, murder, right? You don't necessarily have to pull the trigger, but you have to play a substantial part in the substantive offense. So I agree with the professor. I still think there's enough evidence, but that's the best argument on appeal if you're challenging the sufficiency of the evidence. But even if you knock that out, you have these other two. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, you're doing 30 years, you're doing life, you're going to die in Florida State Prison, and that's what's going to happen to Donna Adelson.
Joe Patuto, I know I've asked you this before, but when you have guys like Nima who graduated from Harvard Law at 22 and you're the professor, Do you ever have moments inside your head where you're like, oh man, I can't lose this argument to this student, but I don't know
You
what
mean after they've graduated? or
No,
while
no,
they're
no, no.
still-
When they're in school and they're challenging you,
No.
Nima was arguing with his
Yeah,
professors. What do you
no, because they can be extraordinarily bright.
You would
They
still
can be-
destroy them
They
though.
can be, I don't want to say that they can be really well prepared, but the difference is the professor in the front of the class has the experience and the context. And so and plus controls the mic. So you can control how much the student gets to say. You can follow up with other arguments. So no, and in fact, if in law school, a really bright, well-prepared student could get ahead of the professor all the time, then the professor shouldn't be teaching that class. Because somehow the professor is not doing a job of challenging and guiding and making that student better. So it has nothing to do with, not being bright enough or anything like that. Clearly not. It's just that, the game is stacked the other way.
I like this quiet confidence. Plus, I love, as a guy who hosts a show, that you could just mute your students. That's the best part. Vivian Oliver, I had to bring this comment up. This Italian Joe, even though her name is Vivian, I guess her real name is Joe. This Italian Joe has truly missed Lawyer Joe awaiting Joe's channel. Joe, I can't help but notice that multiple people are asking when your channel is going to launch. Is that going to happen one day, Joe?
Yes, probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I would guess, month maybe. Yeah.
I welcome it. It's going to be competition for me, but I welcome it. Don't make me come and mute you, Joe. If you appreciate the content, please like and subscribe, and that's awesome. Joe is going to start her own channel. That's amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing that. All right, so this is Donna with her tears. Continuing on here.
Where is the evidence prior to the murder? The evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the state needed to prove their case. Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 in the morning?
Before you continue, Mrs. Adelson, as it relates to this statement, is the defense trying to re-argue the trial?
No, Judge, just giving Adelson an opportunity to be heard.
Mrs. Adelson, you certainly can continue. However, the court can take into consideration the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying.
Nima, how much blame do you have to put on Jackie Fulford and Josh Zellman here, I guess, to allow their client to go in there and essentially relitigate a case at her sentencing where she's already been convicted?
You got to control your client. And obviously, Donna Adelson seems like someone that can't be controlled. But this is a complete and total train wreck, because my understanding of Florida law is it's a mandatory life sentence unless there's some evidence of mitigation. And you going before the judge and challenging the jury verdict, refusing to accept any responsibility, this is a surefire way to get slammed at sentencing. And that's exactly what happened. Obviously, it wasn't a capital case. This is the most the judge could do. But this is what you're not supposed to do. If you're going to appeal and you want to roll the dice with a 3-judge appellate panel, then just keep your mouth shut. Saying this is the absolute worst thing you can do. And I got to say something, because you're absolutely right. Listen, I had some of the best professors when I was in law school. I mean, Elena Kagan, who's now in the Supreme Court, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Alan Dershowitz. And every single time, no matter how smart I was, they schooled me in every which way. It was, it was like me trying to, my office is across the street from crypto, trying to go over there and try to ball up one of the Lakers. So it was not happening at all.
By the way, we lived in a on-campus housing at Brandeis my senior year, and it was 5 guys, 1 brave woman, and she was at the time, early 90s, Alan Dershowitz's personal assistant. She was doubling as a student, and she informed us that Alan Dershowitz liked to watch himself on the CNN so much he had a television in his shower in 1991, which just goes to show you the extent he would go to watch himself. I thought that was fascinating. Okay, here's the end of this. COE's telling me to calm down. Here we go.
Please proceed if you desire to do so.
Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 a.m. that revealed that I had any involvement in this vile and horrific act? Where is the solicitation and conspiracy evidence? The state needed to show that there was evidence before the murder to convict me. The state couldn't show that because there wasn't any evidence. They were trying an innocent person. It makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping when the state had Sergeant Corbett on the stand for hours. Their own star witness testified that my phone was never, I repeat, never at my son's house on the night of the murder. The state's theory that my husband and I dropped off money to my son was blown out of the water by their own witness. And yet, the state continued to push that story, that lie of the so-called money drop, to the jury through the remainder of the trial.
Doubling down, Nima, and the question is a great question. Can Donna's sentencing statements hurt her appeal? What's the answer?
Not necessarily, because she denied everything. Sometimes you're kind of caught in the situation as a criminal defendant. Do you accept responsibility at sentencing such that you're making admissions that can be used against you if the appellate court overturns the conviction and you're retried? So sometimes defendants are hesitant to say, hey, I did it, I'm remorseful, I accept responsibility. That's a mitigating factor. But here, the fact that she lied completely is not going to hurt her on appeal, because that's what she probably would have said had she taken the stand, like her lawyer said would happen, but ultimately didn't happen. One important point that Donna Adelson needs to understand: the evidence that is acquired after the murder, that can be used against her. The bump, the jailhouse informant, her flight to another country. That's all evidence. Just because it happened after the murder doesn't mean it's any less valid than what they had before Dan Markel was killed.
By the way, there's also news in the world of the convicted killer out in Idaho, whose name I don't like to say, the guy who murdered 4 University of Idaho students. I'm going to put together a little video on the latest, and the COE will get that under the video tab likely tomorrow. So please look for that. And again, hit like and subscribe. This is true. I mean, the implication all along, I don't know if it's an implication, but fact, according to Sergeant Chris Corbett, Joe, is that they essentially went dark for like an hour and 8 minutes, I think was the precise time. Donna, you can see what a difficult client she is. And now that I have the context, having spoken to Drina and really hearing about this change in personality, how on the one hand, she's this meek person, how on the one hand, she's sitting here talking about poor Dan Markel, should never have been a victim of this. And then you hear Drina talk about how he was son of a you-know-what and how much she hated him. I don't know. It makes listening to her that much more difficult. I mean, it's not something appellate judges are going to have to worry about, but she is highly manipulative now when she goes back and says, your own expert witness said. No, your own expert witness never said that. Your own expert witness said for the state that they disappeared for an hour and 8 minutes at that time. I guess the question is, I should have asked a question.
I wondered.
Me or Joe?
Yeah. I mean, Joe, I think the question there is she's a manipulator. She manipulated.
Yeah.
She's convicted of all this.
I don't think she's meek. I think she's manipulative. She goes to meek when it's in her best interest to seem meek. She tries to be the sweet old grandmother when it's in her best interest to be the sweet old grandmother. And when she's in a context where neither is going to work for her, she's herself, which is anything but meek. It's manic. It's nasty. It's controlling. But I think she is enough of a. Gee, I don't know what a descriptive word I'd use here. Let's just say she's enough of a manipulator that she matches her personality or the personality that she portrays to the context she's in. And then she just missed. Now, whether she lied about what Corbett said or she just decided to misstate, either way, it's just crazy. I went and rewatched part of Sarah Boone's sentencing, which was another insane sentencing hearing. And there's so much alike between what the two of them do. Not, what they're doing at the sentencing is not geared to persuade a judge to make a downward departure in any way, shape, or form. But I said with Donna, I don't think that was the audience she was trying to reach anyway. She was making a case to her grandsons that she's been victimized by the judge, by the jury, by Tallahassee, and she is innocent. And look, even the jury even refused to listen to the evidence from the law enforcement witness on the stand. And I assume she hopes that neither of the grandsons will ever actually listen to the evidence at testimony and at trial and match it against what she said the testimony was. But I think that those two boys were her audience, not anybody else.
If you all have questions for either Nima or Professor Joe, please put in a triple Q, and I'll scroll down to the bottom here. Last couple of minutes, we'll take a few questions. Joe Picciuto, back to you. Thank you to Matt for this super chat. Glad Donna picked these two lawyers. Guess the Adelson Institute couldn't afford real ones. They're real lawyers. I don't know how effective either of them were, but this was a really tough case. STS, all of it, as always. Thank you to Matt. I mean, Joe, are you at all nervous? I mean, there were predictions from different content creators on this show that an indictment was coming. You heard Nima earlier say he doesn't think an indictment is coming ever, but it's been a very quiet period. Is it making you nervous?
No, I'm hoping an indictment will come. And as I said, I think there is enough to convict Wendy. I've said all along that a jury would have to look at the evidence and run the inferences of guilt in one way to get there, but I think there's enough to do it. I don't know that the fact that there's quiet now means much. I'm sure Georgia Kappelman has other cases. She probably had to in some way put them aside in order to focus on this trial. I'm sure then she wanted to take a break. The investigators probably wanted a break. Sarah Catherine Dugan is waiting to see whether she's going to be a judge. If that happens, they're certainly not going to want to go, even if they're prepared to go forward, they're not going to want to go forward right away because they're going to have to get another prosecutor up to speed on the case. I mean, Sarah participated in the last two trials? Certainly the last Charlie's and Donna, so two at least. They're going to have to get somebody else up to speed. I'm not at all concerned that it hasn't happened yet. I am a little concerned, I guess, that they feel that they've gotten the big dogs and they can rest on their laurels. I would be disappointed in them if that's what they decided, because I think in a case like this, that if you think there's enough, if you've got a reasonable belief, a sincere, honest belief that there's enough evidence to convict beyond a reasonable doubt, Wendy, I think they should go forward and try it. And if there's not enough and the jury comes back with an acquittal, well, then so be it. At least you gave it a shot. And I think the Markels deserve having the state take a shot at Wendy.
This comment is interesting. I don't think there's any truth here, but there's a moral. Is it possible someone is paying George to be Wendy's boyfriend to see if he can get her to slip with details? I love the paranoia. Carmwood, too. The moral of the story is this is Wendy's life now. She literally has to question everything, including her own boyfriend. Is he some sort of plant? I like the thinking. I don't think it's the case, but I like the thinking. And that is literally probably how Wendy has to live her life right now. Nima, there's a question. I know you know California law. In California, let's say a mother and son are both convicted of murder one. Are they allowed to write to each other from one prison to another?
They are, but anything that comes back and forth is subject to review by prison officials. So they can write whomever they want. They can email. Obviously, there's restrictions there, but absolutely. There's no restriction from one inmate communicating with another in writing.
And then, Nima, what about just back to the appellate issue? That's a real topic of the show tonight. Obviously, Michael Ufferman is handling Charlie's appeal. Is it acceptable for two appellate attorneys. Can Donna's appellate attorney confer with Michael Ufferman? Is that kosher?
Yeah, sometimes you'll have a joint defense agreement, and so anything they do will be privileged. What's interesting here is obviously you have this family dynamic, and one thing that I thought may happen, and obviously it did not happen because this appeal was pending, but I thought there was a possibility that Charlie shows up at trial and Donna's trial, falls on the sword and tries to take responsibility for everything, right? So if you have a Wendy, and again, I'm not saying that would carry the day and the jurors would buy it, but there's always that at trial exoneration possibility. So say Wendy's prosecuted, Donna could come and say, listen, she knew nothing about it. Now, again, the jurors can disbelieve her, or Charlie could say the same thing, but just something to think about when you have these subsequent prosecutions.
Joe Patuto, feel free to weigh in here, but I'm going to go back to Nima just because I know he's doing a lot of this stuff on the sort of the day-to-day. But so after this defense brief gets filed, once that actually happens, we've got to put it together. The state responds, and then what? Where do they go from there? Like in Charlie's case, there's an other brief being filed. How long does this go on for before these appellate judges sit down and make an actual decision?
Yeah, so normally, again, this is normally without extensions, that reply is filed. The government has usually, depending on the state, usually around 30 days to file a cert reply if the Court of Appeal allows it. And then they set it for oral argument. And at that oral argument, and again, you can tune in, obviously not in federal court, there's no cameras allowed, but you can listen to the audio, right? There was audio today of the Supreme Court oral argument on the tariffs, for instance, right? And you'll see those judges, and they're really smart. Look, in law school, they say the A students become the professor, the B students become judges, and the C students become the lowly lawyers like Dave and I are. So these appellate judges, they're really smart. So they're going to come after these lawyers at the oral argument, right? They're going to poke and prod and say, what do you mean there's not enough evidence for murder one? Well, where does that leave you with respect to solicitation and conspiracy? So you'll hear that argument. And look, it might not be more than 20, 30 minutes, but the judges are going to ask their questions. And after the oral argument, they put together their opinion. Now, it could be 3-0, it could be 2-1. The defense can obviously always appeal to the state Supreme Court as well. We may have another round. And the state Supreme Court, they don't have to take every case in any state, especially Florida. They choose which appeals they want to take, and they take on a small percentage. Obviously, it's a high-profile case. Maybe there's some interesting appellate issue that makes it more likely. Then you'll see federal habeas relief, state habeas relief. It's not an appeal. They're kind of collaterally attacking the conviction based on some constitutional violation. Look, I'm talking about California, but I'll talk about a couple high-profile cases that are still pending. You're talking about Scott Peterson and Eric and Lyle Menendez. Mm-hmm. These are murder convictions from a long time ago. So believe me, the appeals will never end. I don't think Donna's going to survive, but this is just the first step of that process, whether it's an appeal or a collateral attack.
Yeah, and Joel, if I can interject, with regard to Charlie's appeal, when his appeal is final, he then has the claim that there was a conflict of interest involving Daniel Rashbaum first defending him and then switching to Donna. Remember all that argument, why he had to be recused from the case in the first place. That is not an issue that was raised on appeal. That one has to be handled on a collateral attack. In other words, they'll go back into probably first into state court, then into federal court on it. And that's when we'll hear the argument on the conflict issue.
And then
It's not on this appeal, it will be later. So he's got something different than the normal appeal would be. Normally on a regular appeal, when you go in on a collateral attack, you're still raising things, maybe in a different way. You're raising you're framing it as a constitutional issue, but it's what went on appeal. Charlie's going to be bringing in a new issue entirely when he goes into habeas corpus.
The High Priestess of Law. That should be the name of the channel. If you guys have good channel titles, send them my way. I'm curious what you think. Judge Joe instead of Judge Judy. It'd be great. Dr. Reinhardt here. With Donna in prison, And Joe, I'll come back to you with this one. I believe Dr. Reinhardt is of the psychological doctorhoodness. With Donna in prison, does Charlie become the forgotten Adelson as Harvey, Wendy, and others turn their attention to Donna? Will Charlie stew in bitterness with his damaged big toe? What might he do, Joe? I mean, is there anything that he could do?
I'm not in the business of trying to predict what sociopaths and psychopaths do. I mean, it's a kind of a brain function that I really don't have a close familiarity with. I do think that Charlie, maybe more so than Donna, likes to be the center of attention. So if it really goes elsewhere, I think he may feel a little neglected. And if that's the case, who knows what he might try. But I don't know. He may also feel, he's happy eating his cheeseburger once in a while in prison, and just, I can't imagine that he's going to go forward thinking, oh, this is my life and I'm going to live it. Maybe not happily. I think he'll be looking for issues, but whether it's because Donna is the focus of attention right now, I don't know.
It is not a tagline. This is our reality, the best guests in true crime. If you find better guests out there, let me know. I'll give you money back, but it ain't going to happen, so I'm not worried. I hate to even bring this scenario up, and then we'll wind it down here, Nima. But if either Charlie or Donna were to win an appeal, this is why I said what I just said, the comment, STS, best guess. If Charlie or Donna were hypothetically to win their appeal, which is like a 0.001%, what does that do to any potential prosecutions and the family dynamic writ large?
Yeah, so there's two possibilities on appeal. The first is the nuclear option, where an appellate court says, as a matter of law, no reasonable juror would have found that there's enough evidence for these convictions, in which case the conviction is vacated entirely. Now, normally what happens is if there's an error, a legal error, the court will grant a new trial. So we get to start all over. So that's typically what happens. Sometimes the appellate decision is just limited to the sentencing. So the conviction stands, but the sentence was calculated unlawfully for some reason. Then it will be remanded for just resentencing. But in the vast majority of cases, if an appeal is granted, the remedy is a new trial. It's not vacating the conviction.
Perhaps the most important question of the night from Lisa Mona. Joe, what pin are you wearing? It looks like an airline pilot pin. It does. I have a new title for the show. Captain Joe. Captain Joe.
I'd rather be, General Joe. No, it's not an airline pin. It was my grandmother's. And it looks, I don't think it's a horseshoe either, but it looks like a horseshoe over flowers. But I don't think, well, maybe it is. Anyway, it's not an airline pin.
It looks
That's
cool.
the best I can give you as to what it is.
It looks great. Nevertheless, there he is, Dan Markel, the man that everyone is fighting for justice for. There is an organization, Justice for Dan Markel. Nima Rahmani, a UCLA graduate at just 19, Harvard Law at 22. He admitted tonight that he couldn't win arguments against a man with a TV in his shower, but that's a smart guy. Nima, your final thoughts here. Elena Kagan, the Supreme Court Justice. Those are some heavy hitters. But Nima, your final thoughts as we head out on all that we have discussed tonight.
Joel, thanks for having me as always. Joe, great being on. Obviously, love being on with Dave as well. He had to run. But you're right. I mean, this case was about Dan Markel, and it's an older case, and we talked about it for so many years because you had the individuals involved in the actual murder, but not the ones who were calling the shots. And I used to prosecute drug cartels, and I would have those hierarchies in my office, the Department of Justice, and in my estimation, and again, I understand the argument against Wendy. I would love for her to be prosecuted. But when I was thinking about this case for years and years, well before the pandemic, I thought that Donna Adelson, she was the head of that organization. She was the one that was calling the shots from the beginning, right? Setting Wendy up on J-Day. You got to marry this guy. And then, no, I want the kids in South Florida, even though he's working in Tallahassee. So the fact that she has finally been convicted, sentenced, and I'm certain are very confident that her appeal will be denied as well. I'm glad we're talking about this very important case.
Yeah, man, 75 years old, 76 in February, and she's about to go to prison. She's at the reception center, but going to prison for life. This comment right here is going to make me bang my head against the cement wall. Joel, how can we get notified when your channel is live? Theoretically, if you subscribe and are hit, I have no idea what the answer to that is. However, I will say this. I know enough lawyers, YouTube, that I will file a class action lawsuit. I will come after you if you are not notifying my audience, my community about my show. Believe me when I tell you that. Believe me. Now the algorithm is going to destroy us. Someone said they like General Joe, Priestess Justice Joe. Keep them coming. Keep them coming, please. You can email us, survivingthesurvivor@gmail. Also, people said, hey, I want to be a mod for Joe Patu. I'm getting already dusted, left behind. That's fine.
Well, give me the list.
Yeah, if you want to
That
mod
you
for
can
Joe,
do for me.
email us.
And right now, the channel title is very, very pedestrian. It would be just Prof. Joe Explains. Nothing cute, nothing fancy, nothing clever. So if somebody's got a better idea.
I think you're going to have to put law prof just so people know what you're explaining. Can't just be prof. We'll talk, Joe. I'm going to come up with something.
So do you want my final thoughts?
Yeah, please.
Nima, it's been great being on the program with you.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry, Joe.
Sure.
Callie, Joel's channel is the only, Nima, get this started for me, Nima. I will pay whatever it takes. Joel's channel is the only channel that doesn't turn red when it's live. I'm going to go home and smack my head against the wall. Why are you? I actually know a lawyer at YouTube. I'm going to reach out right after this. I will file a suit against you. That is not a baseless threat. Go ahead, Joe.
I don't think you need a lawyer. You need somebody in the office who knows how to turn whatever the thing is that works on. And I think maybe the lawyer is going to be at the tail end of the line who would know how to do that. But what do I know? I guess all I want to say is I agree with Nima. This case has been around since, for a long time. There have been 4 trials so far. I heard Phil Markel at after the conviction when he gave his victims impact statement saying what he hoped for was that everybody involved in this murder would be prosecuted, would be punished. He didn't say punished. I'll say it for him. And I don't think he meant that the case was over with Donna. Now, victims obviously can't control whether a prosecution goes forward. That has to be with the prosecutor. Prosecutor's in the position to know whether the case can be tried, what the resources are in the office as to whether it is worth doing it compared to all the other things they have to do. But I'm with him, as I said before, as to another prosecution coming. It's kind of hard to believe that we're the end of the road, but even if that were true, Charlie's appeal, Charlie's post-conviction claim, Donna's appeals, this case is not going to be over at least for the next 2 or 3 years, no matter what happens with regard to Wendy.
Wow. It will never end, I guess. Of course, we're thinking about the Markel family. They're the ones that are the victims in this, as are obviously the grandchildren. Another title here from Sela Fernandez, In the Know with Prof. Joe. I like the ring to it. Keep them coming. You can email us, survivingthesurvivor@gmail. We're back with another Adelson show tomorrow, probably looking at what Drina said about Donna Adelson, and we'll get reaction from some interesting types. Maybe we'll bring on some psychologists to dig deep into Donna's dark mind. Love you, America. Justice for Dan. We'll see you on the flip side. Thank you all for being here. See you soon.